Josh, appreciate you waking up early with us this morning. We are 81 days out from Razorback football, and the guy that everyone's talking about in-state and in this conference really is KJ Jefferson. Now, you pointed out something that we have said several times. First time in the history of Kendal Briles being an offensive coordinator that he has a returning starting quarterback. Are we in-state making too much out of that, or is that a bigger deal than what we realize heading into this season?
Well, I don't think it's a nothing. So there's that. I think sometimes in this time of the year, preview magazine season, in other words, there starts to develop these talking points, and you have kind of a catalog of just these bullet points you start to rattle off about teams. And a lot of times it has to do with number of returning starters, or they don't play back-to-back road games. It's just, if you want to make an argument, you go find several pieces of ammunition to back up that argument. Some of them mean something. Some of them mean nothing. It just sounds good. This one, I think, means something. I don't know how much it means, though, but if you tell me an already successful guy has never had the luxury of returning a quarterback, yeah, that means something to me, because it spells continuity. And if you've ever been around the game, if you've ever spoken to someone who's played the game, one of the biggest comforts that they could ever spell out for you is knowing I'm coming back in a year where I get to do more of what I did the year before. It becomes second nature, etc. But the other part with Jefferson that you guys know, and I think the rest of the country knows, but I'm not sure, is there aren't a lot of aspects to his game and his season last year that are in limbo of carrying over versus not carrying over. It's almost like a running back. He has a lot of that in him physically, but it's almost like a running back's game. If he's healthy, what he was last year, you stand a good chance of seeing this year, because it's not precision-based. I'm not saying he doesn't throw the ball, but his game is a little bit different than like Will Rogers at Mississippi State, who's going to throw the ball 60 times a game. So if you combine those two, I don't see how you're not excited about it.
I think Arkansas fans are ecstatic about this year. First time you've played 7 games inside of Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium. That includes Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss. They're also excited to see their guy get a contract extension with Sam Pittman. And something you also talked about recently is just kind of the difference that Hunter Yurachek and his team did with Jimmy Sexton and Sam Pittman with that incentive-based contract. And it's really a pen-to-paper thing, because Hunter Yurachek said, we want coaches that want to win and do that. And Sam said, I don't want to go anywhere else. Well, there's stuff within that contract that he actually is trying to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk as well. Are we going to see a change in landscape, Josh, within contracts, not just in college football, but college sports?
Yes. I think it may even be more pronounced beneath the head coaching level with the way that coordinator contracts are structured and with the way assistant contracts are structured. I don't necessarily know that we've seen the absolute peak of coaching salaries, head coaching salaries. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. But I do think in general, if you take coaching salaries and facility enhancements and things of that nature and you just throw it all into a blender, I do think we've seen the peak of that collectively. The reason is obviously because of what NIL is doing and how it is shifting the prioritization of funding from one place to another place. The other elephant in the room that we don't know about, no one has the answer to this, is how is player compensation in general going to work out down the road? And that sounds all jumbled up, but what I mean by this, and this is what a lot of personnel folks are talking about and administrative folks are talking about behind the scenes, it's been for a generation now a climate where you don't technically pay the athletes, they're not making salaries or anything like that, and you've got this huge chunk of money that you're making if you're Alabama or Arkansas or Texas or whoever, and it really doesn't look good if that's just sitting there on your balance sheet. If you've got this huge surplus every year, but players aren't making anything. Well, the way we've gotten rid of that for a long time is we've overpaid coaches because we can afford to do it. Nobody cares. We got all the money in the world, and we put all the money in facilities, and we got waterfalls in our locker room. Why? Not necessarily because we need it, but because we got to spend this money somewhere, or it's not going to look good just sitting over here in the corner. Well, now that we're redirecting that, and potentially some of that goes to players down the road, I don't know that you're going to see the kind of exorbitant contracts and buyouts that we've seen in the past, which is why when I looked at Pittman's contract, I, like many of you, probably said, wow, that seems shockingly responsible. This seems like a real-world contract, the kind of stuff that you and I have to worry about. Merit-based, but as long as you do your job, you're going to get helpfully rewarded. So I hope, I'll tell you this, I hope that that's the structure that coaching contracts take on down the road. I'm not convinced it will at the head coaching level across the board, but I can hope.
Yeah. Josh, what keeps ADs up at night? A guy like Hunter Yurachek or Ross Bjork at A&M, or just go down the roster of the SEC ADs. What are the issues that are looming for the sport that makes Greg Sankey have a little more pause? Is it athletes being deemed employees by the IRS? Is it the bloating cost of running these athletic departments? What causes these guys to lay awake at night right now?
Well, the unknown is most of the time what causes all of us to lay awake at night. And it's no different with them. It's just that their unknown is a little bit more grand and spectacle. But you can go right back to what I was just talking about there. I don't think I remember a period where on the biggest questions in the room, so many top names in college football were shrugging their shoulders and saying, I don't know. But that's where we are right now. Everything from what's the playoff going to look like in a few years to how is the transfer portal going to shake out? Will there be changes to NIL? How many teams are going to be in any given conference in 4 years? No one knows the answers to any of that. And it's kind of, to go back to the blender metaphor, since I used it a few minutes ago, it's like we've taken all of those things and we've put it in the blender. But the problem is you've still got your finger on the button. It's not done mixing yet. And we have no clue how that stuff's going to pour out. So imagine trying to plan. I mean, imagine going into a long-term financial planning session today. Imagine trying to allocate funding for projects that, as you guys know, because you're around this stuff a lot, don't always happen in a year. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 10 years, and yet you don't even, some folks out there don't even know if they're going to be in a Power 5 conference. Some folks out there don't even know what level of TV rights check they're going to be cashing 5 years from now. So in a lot of ways, you're in a no-win situation if you're an athletic director. I think if you're Greg Sankey at the SEC level, or if you're Hunter, or if you're Greg Byrne, or if you're at the SEC level, you count your blessings, because relative to the rest of the country, you're sitting pretty. You may not know, but at least you know at this level, however it works out, it's going to work out as best for you as it will for anyone else in the country.
There's always been pushback on expanding the number of conference games, or maybe even looking at additional playoff games because, hey, these are student athletes, asking them to play more games. Now that we're in a world of NIL and it has more of a professional feel, will it be more accepted in the next few years to see the SEC games move to 9, or maybe the college football playoff expand the total season? Is that softening now with NIL, in your opinion?
I think it is going to soften, but I'm going to be real with you. I don't think it has anything to do with NIL, because I don't think at the end of the day these decisions have anything to do with player safety. And I am the one who's going to say that. You will never hear an administrative type say that. But I am a believer that if you get in this room with the decision makers who are calling the shots on 8 games versus 9 games, or 14 playoff versus 12-team playoff, there will be lip service paid to, how many games are we really going to make these players play? But if anyone on this phone call or listening, driving around there this morning, believes that powerful people are going to decline 9-figure money based on player safety, then I think you're crazy. I'd love to believe you, but I think you're crazy. I think it has a lot more to do, especially at the SEC level, with what's the playoff format going to look like? Are we enhancing the risk over the reward if we go to 9 conference games, if the playoff format is still going to punish people congruently for wins and losses? And that's kind of always been the problem. And I don't disagree with them when they think that way. You know, if a loss to an SEC West team is going to be looked at the same way as a loss to a Mountain West team, well, why don't you just go schedule some cupcakes? I've never liked that format, but I've understood why they did it that way. But, yeah, I think there will be softening. I think the softening will come because folks know they have more leeway if and when the playoff expands. I really, really cynically do not believe it has a lot to do at all with player safety.
Josh Pate with us here now on the Morning Rush, 247 Sports. If you haven't listened to Late Kick, well, you need to, because it's a fantastic college football podcast. Josh, you got to go to some great games last year. East Lansing, Waco, when they beat Oklahoma. And I know there's Arkansas fans that ask you every single week, when are you coming to Fayetteville? When are you coming to Fayetteville? I know that your schedule's not 100% set, but how likely is it you see yourself in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium Week 5 when Bama comes to town?
I'm not even at Week 5. I'm at Week 1. I think it's a distinct possibility I'm there in Week 1. I think that a lot of my national brethren are looking at games like Notre Dame, Ohio State with good reason. They're looking at Oregon, Georgia with good reason. But I, first off, have not been able to get up to Arkansas. And secondly, I mean, where's the better environment going to be? In a static neutral site in Atlanta or in Fayetteville, Arkansas? And that's the kind of stuff I want to ask. Now, I want to go where the best overall experience is. So, yeah, Week 5 is a no-brainer. Week 1, though, I think I was up after midnight last night talking to one of our folks about this. There's a very distinct possibility that Arkansas is the destination in Week 1. So maybe I'll go from 0 visits to multiple visits all of a sudden this year.
I think Arkansas fans would enjoy that. Now, the guy that I'm sitting next to loves to give me a hard time because I'm the age where all my friends are getting married, Josh. And I know you're very adamant, no weddings during college football season.
Amen.
I've got 4. And I'm wondering from your vantage point perspective, what do I do in these situations? How do I go about that with work and everything going on? What is the Josh Pate solution to these 4 weddings coming up September through December?
Are you telling me you have 4 Saturday weddings this fall?
I do, yes, that I've been invited to.
I already know the answer to the question.
Well, I just want to assure you, we didn't drop the call. I'm just giving you a little moment of silence here. That's one of the more depressing things I've heard in the last several weeks. Look, I told folks on the show the other night, I just got blindsided by what I refer to as treachery, because one of my friends who knows better invited me in person with his significant other in tow to a Saturday wedding this fall. And he thought because he did it in person, I would hesitate to say no. He was wrong, and I did. You just got to hardline your stance. And look, I think there's really no excuse on your end because you are in sports media. Therefore, you're one of the few who reasonably could say, sorry, I've got to work that day. And it'd be true. And so I kind of got into this business, among other things, for that reason, so I could have an excuse to get out of fall weddings. I could not tell you how many people flooded my inbox after that segment we did the other night, talking about having Friday weddings in the fall and it being the best experience they ever had. Because as it turned out, while they thought people would be unwilling to take a day off work, what they actually found is people are way more likely to be willing to burn a vacation day if it means they don't have to burn a Saturday on your wedding instead of stuff they actually like to do. So I think the fall Saturday wedding is one of the more selfish moves anyone could make, especially if they're inviting you to it. I just think that at that point, you have to prioritize. You have to be selfish. Yeah. They were already selfish in inviting you, so you got to make a me decision in return.
See, Josh, I go a step further. We're all in the South. We love deer hunting. You got to have a license to deer hunt. You got to have a license, and there's a season for that. You got to have a license to get married. There just needs to be a season, and from Labor Day to Thanksgiving, the season's off. There will be no marriage license issued for September, October, November. That solves the problem. We create a season.
I really and truly think that in my inevitable run for office one day, you just added a bullet point to my campaign.
There you go.
That was so beautifully articulated. Who's arguing that? No one's arguing that.
And here's the thing. You have a Friday wedding. Great. If you're the bride or groom, at some point that anniversary is going to roll around on a game day Saturday when you're playing your arch rival. And your wife's going to want you to go to War Eagle, to a craft festival, to a flea market, to a whatever, for your anniversary trip to Eureka Springs. And you want to be at the stadium. It's just fraught with peril here if you get married in the fall on any day of the week.
Yeah, and to be clear, my stance here is I view the couple themselves as sort of a lost cause. Not in terms of their marriage. I root for their marriage. Love the institution of marriage. I'm just saying, if you've even gone down the road of planning a fall wedding or considering it, you're beyond help.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the people being invited. So your anniversary means less than nothing to me and how you spend it down the road. I just want to save a chapel full of 250 victims from having to sit there and check their phone every 2 minutes, and especially if it's outdoors and they're having to sweat multiple ways, figuratively and literally. That's just, oh, man, I don't wish it on my worst enemy.
Josh, we'll leave it there as you just went scorched earth in the final part of our interview this morning.
It was perfect, too.
We appreciate it, man. Let the Hog fans know as soon as you decide about your Week 1 destination. I'm sure they'd love to see you and meet you.
I will do it. I appreciate you having me on, guys.
All right, great stuff from Josh Pate this morning. The Late Kick. If you haven't watched Late Kick with him, he's fantastic, whether it's on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Josh does a great job.